Will Hulk Hogan imitate Donald Trump? Let's see. I've only done business with the brother a couple times. Rented out the Trump Plaza for WrestleMania 4 and 5. Sold the building out. Yeah, I'll imitate Donald Trump. Okay, first thing we got to do is get rid of anything that's cool. So sunglasses got to go. Next thing we got to do is turn our back to everybody or on everybody. So let me turn my back on everybody that's close to me. I've done business. Ooh, that's the largest back in the world. Look at that thing, man. Looks like the Brooklyn Bridge, brother. So now that I got my back turned, I'm definitely in character. And in my opinion, Donald Trump, the first thing he would do would be pull out the comb for the over. So we can get the comb over, brother. So, let's see, we pucker them little lips up. So now that I got the comb over, and I'm official Trumpetized, Trumpomadian running wild with a comb over. Oh, wait a minute, there's a flap of wind. Cover the bald spot. Hold on, brother. Whoa, whoa, whoa. God, turn the wind off. This is Donald Trump. Whoa, don't blow my hair up. All right, now that I got the comb over, the first thing I'm going to do is, Ivana, you're fired. Melania, you're fired. Ivanka, you're... Oh, no, that's my daughter. I can't fire my daughter. Hold on. Donald Jr., I can't fire... Oh, can't fire her. I mean him, that's my other son. The new wife, you're Wait, I can't fire the new wife. She'll take the other half of my stuff. Anyway, that's how you imitate Donald Trump.
On July the 18th, 2024, we were treated to one of the most amazing cultural moments in recent American history when the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, spoke at the Republican National Convention, half in character, half as himself, and still managed to get the biggest reaction outside of President Trump himself out of that whole entire night, maybe of the whole convention. And I'm here right now to discuss why that is. Why was Hulk Hogan there? And was it a good thing or a bad thing that Hulk Hogan was there? And it's actually deeper than you think. Of course, I was extremely entertained by the freak show idea of Hulk Hogan being involved with this. But then I thought about it. And I said, outside of the friendship between Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump, which we know goes back for a while, one of the reasons why Hulk Hogan would even be there is that Republicans are often very nostalgic for the 1980s. For, Ronald Reagan is Donald Trump's favorite president, but mostly you have a deep feeling of Americana. And all these things that Trump symbolizes with the attitude of make America great again. The typification of that would be Donald Trump himself and everything that he symbolizes, how he wants to be a modern Ronald Reagan. So when you look at all of these people who are in the building who want to go back to a better time, what was a better time for a lot of the people in that room? The 1980s, the early 1990s, and who is a cultural icon from that era? Hulk Hogan. But it's not just that Hulk Hogan is a cultural icon from the 1980s. It's also about what Hulk Hogan represents. Pro wrestling has always had a sort of interesting relationship with the United States. Pro wrestling is Americana, pure and simple. It is the great American art form. It is a physical combat theater. And Americans, especially in Middle America and in the South, really love pro wrestling. And this denotes quite a bit of a class distinction. As Donald Trump, his base is primarily Middle America and the South. So when you look at it from a class distinction, you're talking about somebody like Donald Trump who is railing against the cultural elites, despite the fact that Trump himself is from New York. But the coastal elites, the kind of people who didn't get wrestling, who don't understand it, who didn't like it. If you have read certain books, for instance, Guy Evans' Nitro, and some of the other books about advertisers in New York or, Hollywood not really understanding what pro wrestling is and thinking they can take it and twist it and make it whatever they want it. but it was the middle America and the South that really understood it, that get what pro wrestling is. And that is a story. It is a power fantasy that the babyface in some ways is a vigilante. That the strong babyfaces are going to be the guys who are going to go back and make the villain pay for their devious deeds. Whether it's Stan Hansen breaking Bruno Sammartino's neck, whether it's the Junkyard Dog chasing down the Freebirds for blinding him. You know, these kinds of things really play into what makes pro wrestling work. And if you listen to Hulk Hogan's speech, that is the drum that he's beating. It's about right and wrong. It's about good people being disgusted with the actions of another person, whether that be a coastal elite or somebody who is more villainous in their own backyard. But it also denotes that it is a feeling, a power fantasy that is attached to the blue-collar working man. You know, much like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was seen as, despite the fact that he pretty much beat up Vince McMahon every week, he was seen as the everyman. And people lived vicariously through him and his ability to beat up his boss. Everybody in that room who was listening to Hulk Hogan, when he ripped his shirt and he said, "Enough was enough," that's how they feel when they see that Donald Trump has been shot, when they see that Donald Trump has been impeached, when they see that he's been indicted, when they see that he's been convicted, and they see all of these things. They're looking at it from the perspective of being victimized. Donald Trump is being victimized. It is time to fight back. It is time for somebody to do something, for somebody to stand up and give these bad guys what they deserve. It's about good people solving tough problems, sometimes with their hands. This is what pro wrestling is. There's only so many times you can see a guy eye rake or fish hook or hit somebody with a chair before the crowd gets so worked up that they want to see somebody, anybody, get in there and get their hands on that dirty bastard. Meanwhile, the other side is often the party that doesn't really support that base human emotion, that drive for things like justice, like physical outlaw frontier justice, where somebody sees corruption and they expose it and they combat it. The only person willing to stand up to the Antifa mobs, call out the corrupt bureaucracy and the corrupt politicians like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and call out, you know, the governors of California and Michigan and New York. And he has built up this kind of cultural energy where these people truly believe that he is, in a sense, the hero that they're looking for. The one guy in the entire Republican Party that's going to stand up to the degeneracy and the injustice that they see. And Hulk Hogan is a great, great symbol of that, because that's what his character is. That's what Hulk Hogan has always been. He's been the guy who fights the bullies, the guy who fights the monsters, the guy who fights the savages and the warriors and the giants, and the guy who's always had the deck stacked against him. But you can trust him to at least fight against even death. And so, much like when Hulk Hogan wrestled The Undertaker in the Gravest Challenge, when Donald Trump dodged that bullet, dodged that assassination attempt, he took on a whole new status in the eyes of Trump supporters. If you thought it was a cult before, oh my God, they just tried to kill him and he's still here. It's divine intervention. When, for people who believe in God and country, and they look at something like this and they say, this guy has faced every single institutional establishment challenge possible, and he's still here, even within his own party. People have turned their backs on him, attacked him in his own party, and he's still here. It takes on a whole new meaning to see somebody like Hulk Hogan, who they have already have that parallel in their mind of the superhero, and that Trump is a superhero, so why not have a real life superhero verbalize why he is there to support Donald Trump? So it's not just superheroes. Somebody is there to fight the cultural decay and the corruption of Democrat-run cities and Democrat politicians and some Republicans too. But it's also sometimes just base level politics. Peter Thiel, the Republican donor, who is actually more libertarian if you actually listen to him speak, he has close ties with all three of the people involved here: Hulk Hogan, Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance. He helped J.D. Vance win his Senate seat in Ohio. He helped Donald Trump win the election in 2016. And he helped Hulk Hogan absolutely destroy Gawker in like 2018 or something like that. So he has his own reasons, but it's when you have somebody like that behind you, and Donald Trump and Hulk Hogan, of course, have already a friendship going way back to the 80s, and, the WWF and Donald Trump with WrestleManias 4 and 5. So that relationship is already there. But of course, it was rocky. There's some videos out there of Hulk Hogan making fun of Donald Trump. But when you have somebody like Peter Thiel can bring everybody together, and then you get to double down, sometimes triple down on the demographics, because you have J.D. Vance there. J.D. Vance grew up in Appalachia. He's from Kentucky, was raised in Ohio, was kind of going back and forth between the two. His mom was on drugs. He didn't really have a strong relationship with his father at all, with his birth father. And the strongest relationship he had with a man was his stepfather, who his mom divorced. So he had this traditional broken home, poor white trash background. And when you see Donald Trump pick J.D. Vance to be his vice president and Hulk Hogan to do a testimonial in front of all of these people, you see middle America, or what I sometimes call NASCAR nationalism, because it's beating the drum of middle and southern America, the kinds of people who watch NASCAR, where the men are macho and outdoorsy and self-reliant, and they're the heads of their household, and they believe in God and country, and they're willing to fight for their country. They're willing to die for their country. And the women are helpmates. They're beautiful partners. They want to raise children. Simple life, not too complex. They don't overthink what they should be doing in the world. And when you look at these kinds of people, and you're looking at J.D. Vance, who is a devout Catholic, and Donald Trump, who knows, and Hulk Hogan, he just got baptized, and they typify all of the middle American, Southern American values. They're carrying those symbols with them: the flag, the cross, the Bible, things like pro wrestling, and you had Kid Rock out there. So you had the entirety of Southern and Middle America, the place that the West Coast and the East Coast call flyover country. Those places represented for the first time, and those people are concerned. They're deeply concerned because they don't view Middle and Southern America as being enlightened, right? All the best universities are on the East Coast: Harvard, Yale, and MIT, or they're on the West Coast. The big tech companies are on the West Coast. They don't view Middle and Southern America as places that have legitimate values or places that have legitimate views on the world. They look at it as a place that corn comes from, and that's it. Corn and cows. You see, AOC saying, hey, land shouldn't vote, people vote, and people are in cities. It's like, yeah, but there's not a lot of big cities in the middle of the country. There's Chicago, St. Louis is there, but there's not a lot of big cities. There's no New York in the center of the country. Chicago is the closest that you're going to get. I know Las Vegas and LA are out west, and New York and Baltimore and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Well, that's out west. The closest in the middle of the map you get is Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, maybe Indianapolis. And those are not considered huge markets, but they're considered Americana, the breadbasket, the Bible Belt of the United States. And those people were well represented at this convention for the first time and seemingly forever. Now, there's a lot of critique to be had. Hulk Hogan was out there. He's a gigantic clown. He's doing his gimmick. You know, he switched from being the Hulkster to being regular old Terry Bollea, and I ought to try not to get political. I get that. You know, he has no policy to suggest. He's out there to do a testimonial for his friend. And I think that's the most legitimate reason and the most legitimate speech that he could possibly have. You think Hulk Hogan has really strong opinions about things like abortion and tax policy or what should go on in Ukraine or what we should do about Israel? He probably doesn't have too many strong opinions on that sort of thing. Which makes the jokes that he was making in 2015 about being Donald Trump's vice president and getting a ton of backlash for it. That what makes one of those things pretty funny is, and he also has joked about running for president himself. But when you look at the clown show that was the Republican National Convention in totality, you had a Sikh woman do a Sikh prayer in a supposedly Christian nationalist convention. You had Amber Rose, the queen of the slut walk. You had Kid Rock. You had wife slapper Dana White. And you got Hulk Hogan. I mean, when you look at the Republican Party today, and I think Styx Hexenhammer really did a good job of mentioning this on Twitter, how the party has changed. You know, it's such a wide tent now that Trump, through his sense of humor, through his personality, he has diversified the party. And he didn't diversify the party in the same way that the Democrat parties diversified their party. They diversified their party through the way that they have been operating in government, the way that they have been operating in colleges, through the way they have been operating in corporations. That's by putting quotas in place, strategically adopting black women VPs or black women Supreme Court justices and that sort of thing. He has diversified the party through everybody being able to come together unafraid and unfiltered to call the corrupt corrupt, to call criminals criminals, to be able to confront these things square in the face and call them what they are. There's a certain level of respect that comes for that, even if he's not usually the kind of guy you would vote for. And you see that a lot with a lot of libertarians and new Republicans. They've never voted Republican before. They had no interest in being a Republican 10 years ago, but they've watched as slowly but surely the boa constrictor of what you can and can't say, who you can and can't call out, the quotas, the restrictions on speech, on how you can dress or what holidays you can celebrate or how you can celebrate those holidays. We went from, in the 90s, pretty much everybody celebrating Cinco de Mayo to now in the 2020s, we're shutting down white girls for having a taco stand because of cultural appropriation. People are sick of that stuff, man. And there's going to be a lot of people who are voting Republican for the first time because of cultural issues like that, not individual policy decisions like, you know, what should the marginal tax rates be? They don't care. They want somebody to do something about all these moral busybodies policing your speech on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. They have the HR departments in your job constantly bringing you into these long, boring meetings about sexual harassment and sexual assault, and they're changing the definition of words. We don't know what a woman is now. They need somebody. And they see Donald Trump as being this person, like, and Hulk Hogan is symbolizing this. That's all he's saying. All he's saying is there's degenerates and scumbags and perverts, and then there is a guy who is going to come in here, get in office, drain the swamp, clean out the scumbags, bring back manufacturing, make America great again, or at least he's going to try. And some people are okay with him failing. At least he tried. These other people are just trying to manage the degeneracy, or it's the other people who are pushing it. So when you see Hulk Hogan and you say this is just a clown show, if you're a European, you don't understand this at all. Why in the world would you have a pro wrestler at your national convention? And it really doesn't make any sense. If you're a serious politician and you're running a serious party, Hulk Hogan wouldn't be anywhere near it. But since this is already a clown show, and you got one side of the aisle debating what the hell a woman is, why can't Hulk Hogan rip his shirt and ask them, what you gonna do? Why not? You got a Supreme Court justice that couldn't answer what a woman is. But it's that kind of mentality that people are trying to combat. They're looking at the emperor and they're saying, you know what a woman is, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Why aren't you saying it? Because you're scared. You're living in a world where people are scared to tell the truth. So they're going to go with the guy who, even if he's full of shit, he's not lying about the things that people can see. Even if he's exaggerating, even if he's talking about other things that might not be true, he's calling out the things that people can see. The obvious, what you're not hearing from the other side. That you have a mayor of San Francisco, I know she's not there anymore, but she was walking down the street with heroin needles and human feces on the ground. You have people nodding from heroin in broad daylight in California. In New York, you had the mayor of New York City, his daughter was arrested for throwing objects at the police during protests. When she got arrested, her daddy bailed her out. Then she turned around and lectured him about his white privilege. When you understand that those are the coastal elites who are now telling you in the middle of the country that you are culturally and morally inferior to them because they support gay marriage and they're passing out needles to drug addicts and they're letting people rob stores blind. They're letting people get pushed in front of trains. All this sort of stuff. Are you surprised Hulk Hogan showed up at the Republican National Convention? I think we needed it. Hulk Hogan showing up at the Republican National Convention is 100% what America needed to see. It was a wake-up call. Because in history, the clowns, in mythology, the court jester, he's the one who makes fun of the king. And the king is tested. The king has to make a decision. Either he shows that he's a tyrant that can't take a joke and he throws the jester in the dungeon, or he laughs and he says, Jester, you know what? You got a good point. You made fun of me. Maybe you got a good point. And what we've seen over the last 10 years with Donald Trump running around in politics is that the kings in New York and in California and other big cities, they're not kings with good sense of humor. They're tyrants. They will throw you in jail and they will mock you relentlessly. And Hulk Hogan being on that stage shows that there is finally a court jester with a backbone. Somebody who is going to stand up and say, you guys are scumbags, you're drug dealers, you're corrupt, and somebody is going to stand up. No more laughing, no more joking, you're destroying people's lives. Enough is enough. So what you gonna do?
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.